How's it going? This is the Americans Offer Recap. Now we got a lot of news to get to this week, but this time we're going to do something a little bit different, okay? You see, everywhere on social media, there's a lot of political battles going on about abortion. In today's episode, we begin with exclusive footage of the March for Our Lives protest right here.
You can't oppress us, you can't push us down because we'll get right back up. Lord, bring a holy conviction on the hearts of all those that are involved, from the governor right down to the doctors, the nurses, every director of every Planned Parenthood. We thank you, Lord, that holy conviction would come upon them.
Well, hello, history makers. And every one of you that are here today are history makers, because we are going to make history. We're going to end abortion in our generation.
You call this reproductive health, but that's just a disguise. It's all about abortion and it's based upon a lie. Abortion is not health care, it is murder, you will see. The truth will set us free.
I became pro-life. I support the children and the mothers. I realized I was wrong. I'm praying for you, Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, we have a right to choose to have the baby and either keep the baby or give it up for adoption.
That's a good choice.
That's two big giant choices. We don't have a right to end a life.
That's right. God bless you.
Who's going to stand up for those little babies?
No, we're being told that it's old white men that are trying to suppress women's rights. But do you know, the fact is that there are more women pro-lifers than men? That's a fact.
Well, we got to get men on board. We have a whole busload of men that we came with,
Amen.
so.
No more Cuomo! No more Cuomo! No more Cuomo! No more Cuomo!
Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
We have people from various churches with us, which is really, really nice. And you can see there's people from all over the place here. And basically, after they pass the law at the end of January, expanding abortion to birth, although they say it is for the health of the mother, one's life is in danger, it's not actually accurate.
Be a voice for the babies that have no voice.
Louisiana is one of the newest states to pass the pro-life bill. The abortion debate also continues in the 2020 election. We have Kamala Harris, who has called that all abortion bills should pass through the federal government, which removes the whole concept of federalism. People on both sides of this issue have gone too far in many people's eyes. We now also have people saying that abortion is a good thing on the left.
And women, don't forget, you have the power to give life, and men will try to control that. Don't let them! God bless abortions, and God bless America! Look, there's mine right there. I'm just so slutty. I got pregnant, so I had to get an abortion.
Right.
I still love me, sex and abort fetuses. That's my number one thing. I had an abortion. And you're proud of it? Yes, I'm super proud of it. When I say aborted, you say fetuses. Aborted. Fetuses. Aborted. Fetuses. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? All the fetuses are in the ground.
There's also a new Harvard poll that states that Trump has a 48 approval rating. That is about near to when he got elected. It seems that the far left has also taken over the party. We now have a Democrat running for office who was booed for not endorsing socialism.
My policies have to become more moderate to get things done that matter to the American people. Then I'm all in.
Cortez is also out this week calling for increased wages for servers and waiters who make less than minimum wage due to tips.
We have to raise the national minimum wage to $15 an hour, nothing less. My hostessing job paid for my train tickets to come down to Manhattan so that I could work and study in science labs and enter science competitions through high school. Any job that pays $2.13 an hour is not a job. It's indentured servitude.
On Tuesday, Pete Buttigieg was on MSNBC and had a massive boo-boo pretty much. You know, he pretty much got called out by one of the people in the crowd saying that, why are you even in the race? There are so many better people, including women, who could be running.
You are running in a field of truly exceptional candidates, particularly in the case of the women who are running, like Senators Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. So my question to you is, why should the women of America vote for you over our sisters who are kind of more qualified?
Now, the other thing that I want the women of America to know, because I've met a lot of women who say, I like you, I like your message, I think you got an appealing candidacy, but I just will not vote for a man this time, is that I get it, and whether you decide to be for me or not, I promise that I will be for you.
He's still polling at about 5%, so unless he does some massive changes to his campaign, pretty much he's screwed. Biden also seems to be losing some steam now in the polls. He's at about 32%. He lost about 7% in the polls, which means that pretty much everyone but Bernie is about at 1 to 5%. He also called for this new climate change plan, which is an attempt to pretty much find a middle ground on this issue. But people like AOC and the far left has pretty much blasted him for this, saying that it's completely useless and unacceptable.
Shows me, and that what that tells us is that what we have been taught that is a luxury should not be a luxury. It should not be a luxury.
On Wednesday, Miley Cyrus is now one of the many celebrities calling out on politics. You know, I know that when I saw Hannah Montana when I was younger, you know what I thought? Man, what is her opinion about taxes? You know, that's something that I truly care about, okay? And it's not to be entertained at all. It's about what's her opinion about politics. So in any case, she's now made this post with her licking a cake that says abortion is healthcare, okay? The star has also licked plenty of things like sledgehammers, sex dolls, and a piano. So honestly, you can have your own opinion about whether you should really take her seriously about politics. Also, we have this week Joe Biden downplaying the threat of China.
Secondly, we're in a position where we have the most agile venture capitalists in the world. They know, I mean, it's not like they're the bad guys. We're the best at doing it. Our workers are literally 3 times as productive as workers in the Far East, in Asia. And they're 3 times productive. And so what are we worried about?
It's important to point out that China still has concentration camps. They still support North Korea. They still have man-made islands in South China Sea. And they still have a very repressive government.
When I ran for U.S. Congress in 2018... Yay! Thank you.
On Thursday, Nancy Pelosi said that Trump needs to be in jail.
Politico reporting that during a meeting Tuesday, she was pressed by Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler to start impeachment proceedings. NBC News has learned from a congressional source in the room, Pelosi then said about the president, "I don't want to see him impeached. I want to see him in prison."
This definitely has a lot of similarities to lock her up in 2016. The far left also continues for impeachment. Elizabeth Warren was asked about it this week.
Hi, Senator. My name's Erin.
Hi, Erin.
How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. My question for you is, do you believe still that impeachment is the right path forward, and why or why not?
Yes, I do. The Mueller report came out, and the afternoon it came out, I sat down and started reading it. And I read it all afternoon, and I read it all night, and I read it into the next morning, all 448 pages. I got to the end, and there were 3 things that are just, man, there's no avoiding them. Part 1, a hostile foreign government attacked our 2016 elections for the purpose of getting Donald Trump elected. Part 2, then candidate Donald Trump welcomed that help. And Part 3, when the federal government tried to investigate Part 1 and Part 2, Donald Trump, as president, delayed, deflected, moved, fired, and did everything he could to obstruct justice.
On Friday, Joe Biden has also flip-flopped on the major issue of the Hyde Amendment, which, if you don't know what it is, essentially it states that there will be no federal funds towards abortion. Any sort of funds would go towards the states. Now, Joe has now completely moved towards removing that amendment completely because it's seen as politically beneficial in his eyes.
If I believe health care is a right, as I do, I can no longer support an amendment that makes that right dependent on someone's zip code.
He has also flip-flopped on the issue of Mike Pence, which is such a minute issue to begin with. But he came out on Friday pretty much calling out Mike Pence, because before he was actually saying that he was a decent guy, but now he's saying that he's such an awful guy, that's not right to be anti-LGBT.
You would have been astounded because you read about it in the press. Astounded. One of our closest allies, Germany, Angela Merkel stood up and excoriated the United States and said Europe has to think about going it alone because we can't count on the United States anymore. The fact of the matter is, it was followed on by a guy who's a decent guy, our vice president.
But the main issue is that a lot of the things that people say about Pence is not really accurate at all. Okay, first of all, a lot of people say that he's for gay conversion therapy. You know, there's simply no evidence to prove that. Lastly, we also have Trump, who has reached an agreement with Mexico. The agreement that they're apparently set pretty much states that if you go from Guatemala to Mexico, you now have to stay in Mexico. Okay, and that works across pretty much any other country. If you go to a separate country, you have to stay in that country. You can't move to the United States after that. Well, that's all news for this week. I'm Sino. This is the Americans All For Recap.